In this video we're going to take a look at the newly released starting point machine called UniFi, which is part of the Tier 2 track. And if you're watching these videos in chronological order, just bear in mind that the next two videos in this series were recorded before this video. So just in case I mention anything in the next machine talking about the previous machine, I'm talking about vaccine rather than UniFi. I've already connected to the VPN, as you can see in the top right hand corner, and I've added the IP address to the host file so that we don't need to remember the IP address each time, we can just use the domain name. And I've also gone ahead and run the NMap scan, so let's go and take a look at the results. So we ran this on all ports with service enumeration and default scripts. We've got our SSH port open 22, we've got 6789 for IBM DB2 admin, not too sure what that is. We've got 8080, a HTTP proxy, and we have 8443 and 8843, which are SSL or HTTPS. You can see by the way that we have quite a lot of noise coming through with this kind of fingerprinting that's happening for each of these ports. A bit unnecessary, kind of getting in the way of actually identifying the open ports and the services, but oh well. We've also got this 8880, which is CDDBP alt. Again, no idea what that is. But the important thing is the ports we've got open here, the HTTP and the HTTPS, are likely to be ones that we can have a look at in the browser. So let's go over to our browser and go to unifi.hackthebox 8080 first of all. And you can see this immediately redirects us to this UniFi 6.4.54. So we might want to try some default credentials here. Admin for example. You can see it takes a little while to actually attempt the sign in. We could try and put in some SQL injection here to see if we've got anything like that. See if we get any errors back. If not, we could go and have a look to see what this application is and whether there's any vulnerabilities in the version. So let's go and have a look with search exploit. Let's put UniFi 6, and you can see we've only got one result for UniFi, which doesn't specify the version, so we could have a look at it. Can use SSX to view it. Sorry, I used SSX there, but actually you would need to use search exploit -x. I've just got an alias set up to speed things up a little bit. But if we have a look at this, we'll see immediately with the description that we need to be authenticated. So the first thing we need to do is find out some login credentials or register a user. In this case, we could have a look at the forgotten password option, but we obviously don't have an email to send this back to. Another thing we'll want to do is just go and Google this version number to see if there's any vulnerabilities, because search exploit isn't up to date with all the latest vulnerabilities. So we'll do that shortly. Let's go and answer some of these questions. The first one was what ports are open, and we had 22, 8080. Now it's saying what ports are open. We actually had more than that. We've got 6789, 6789, and then we had three more. I guess we'll just say 8443. Submit that, and that's fine. Name the software that's running on the highest port. I'm not sure if they want the full thing. Let's have a look. It's not that. It ends with a K. Oh, UniFi network. So it wants the HTTP title. What is the version of the software that is running? And the answer to that was 6.4.54. Let's go and search for that as well. UniFi 6.4.54 exploit. You see immediately we have some mentions of log4j, which was a recent vulnerability, log4j or log4shell. So there's a good chance we'll be working with that. And here we have a blog post which actually goes through exploitation, post-exploitation on the UniFi system that we're looking at. So we'll take a look at this shortly. Let's just go back and see what else we've been asked for. Okay, so it's asking for the CVE. I can't remember that off the top of my head, but here it is right here for us. Let me zoom in a bit. We'll submit that. And let's run through this article then and see what we've got. So TLDR, we're going to exploit log4j vulnerabilities in the UniFi software, get a reverse shell and leverage our access to add our administrative user to the UniFi MongoDB instance. To automate this process, we have released a GitHub repo to exploit the vulnerability. Let's take a quick look at it. So if we're installing from this repo, we can install some dependencies, clone the repo, use Maven, and then run the Python script exploit.py. Let's take a look at that as well. So we can pass in here a URL that we want to attack, which is going to be the UniFi URL. The IP that we want to have our reverse shell connect back to, obviously it's going to be our Kali or Linux box, whatever we're using, and the port that we want to connect back to. And then it's going to set all of this up for us. Okay, so we've got this option. I'm going to go back to the article because it looks like that's going to automate a lot of the process for us, which we might want to step through a bit more manually. So I don't want to go into the log4j vulnerability in too much detail here because I did a separate video going through the Try Hack Me room that John Hammond put together. But let's just say it's a vulnerability with the log4j library, which is a login library for Java, whereby using the Java naming and directory interface, you could specify an address to an LDAP server, which would be attacker controlled, so you control the LDAP server, and then from there you can get code execution. So in the Try Hack Me room, for example, we used an LDAP server which redirected to a HTTP server, again that we controlled, and that would then deliver a Java exploit, so a jar file. So we can see that vulnerable versions include 6.4.54 all the way through to 6.5.54, which we're on the earlier version, 6.4.54, so it was the first version to contain this vulnerability. And exploitation, the vulnerability is in the remember me, or in some versions the username value issued in the login request. And we can see the login request below. So remember is where the payload would go, and the payload would look something like, do we have an example here? Yep. JNDI, Java naming and directory interface, LDAP server, and then to there it's going to redirect to a exploit. Let's go over to the UniFi network and let's test this out just with another login. We'll log in, have a look in Burp Suite. We can see our post request, and as you can see here we've got that remember option. Let's send that to the repeater. Let's go back to that blog and let's take a copy of this. We don't have an LDAP server set up at the moment, but so we'll just go and update the remember section here. Let's add some quotes, paste this in, and we want to go and update this with our address. So I'm going to grab the VPN address. I'm going to paste this in here instead of the server name. And we can try to send this off. Obviously we don't have anything listening on 1389, so this is trying to connect to our LDAP server, which we don't actually have running. But we can send it off anyway and see what we get. And we actually get a message saying invalid payload, which is interesting. So we know there's something potentially there worth investigating. And as it mentioned, this could have been the username field as well. It didn't necessarily have to be the remember field. It basically just depends what is being logged and then how that's going to be parsed after that. So what we could do just to verify that the connection is being made back to our server is go and listen to connections. So we could use TCP dump or Wireshark or something like that. Tshark. Let's try TCP dump-I, and then the interface in this case is going to be our ton0. It might be different for you just depending where you have the IP for the HackTheBox VPN, and then the port, which was 1389. So we start listening, we send the request off again, and you see that we got this connection from UniFi at HackTheBox, and this was the source port. We could also just use Wireshark to do the same. Let's check that out. Open up Wireshark, start capturing traffic on ton0, and then we send the request again. Let's hit stop to stop capturing, and you can see here we have this port 1389, and we can actually go and have a look at that packet if we want to. Not really too much to have a look at, but yeah, we can see it's making the connection anyway, so we know that we can now proceed with the rest of the exploit. So now that we know that the target is vulnerable, we can try and get a reverse shell. You can see that they've recommended this rogue JNDI GitHub repo. Let's take a look at it. A malicious LDAP server for JNDI injection attacks. So this is going to allow us to spawn an LDAP server and HTTP server, which we can then use to send off the exploit. See what the instructions are here. Let's actually go back. Okay, so they've given us a nice one-liner we can use here. Let's go ahead and use that. It's going to clone the repo, and then it's going to cd in there and then run Maven. Oh. Just make sure we have the required libraries, the packages. try that again. Actually, we don't want to try that again because we want to just run maven package. While that's running, let's see what's next. So once the jar is compiled, you'll have to craft a command to deliver the reverse shell. Saying they don't have netcat out of the box, we do have it, but that's okay. Let's craft our reverse shell and base64 encode it with the one-liner below. Okay, so let's take a copy of that. You can see this all completed successfully. We need to go and update our IP and port number. I'll leave the port the same. Let's just grab the IP, paste that in there, and we've got our base64 encoded string. And then we've got another command to run. Let's take a copy of that. We want to replace the host name with our IP, I guess. Well, let me just see, is that the host of where you'll run the command from? Yeah, okay, so that's just going to be our local IP. And then we want to go and update this base64 string as well. It says it's unable to access it. It's just because it's looking in rogue JNDI target and we're already in that directory, so I'm just going to modify that command slightly. Take away this rogue JNDI bit, run that again, and that's looking better. Okay, so it spawned a server, LDAP server on 1389 and a HTTP server on 8000. So this is it's automated what was done on the TryHackMe machine a little bit more. We kind of put this together manually, whereas in this case we were able to just specify, we were able to basically do this in one line. Okay, so let's go back and see what else we need to do here. It's saying to get a reverse shell, issue this command. In our case, we could do this, but we could also simply, well, we could just run the same command here again, right? Let's hit send. Let's go back and see what we've got. Oh, we didn't have a netcat listener open. NLVP 4444. Let me try that again. And this time you can see we've got a connection, so we can check who am I with UniFi. We're going to want to upgrade our shell, so let's do that. We can import Python, hopefully. No, we can't. We've got no Python 3. Let's try it with just Python. We can't do that either. Okay. That is typically how I would upgrade the shell. We can also try script dev null-c bash, and that's also fine. So we can now, we don't have autocomplete, but we at least have a slightly better shell. Now if we go back to the article, we've got a shell, but we had a post-exploitation section as well. But actually, let's jump back to the questions, because I just realized we've missed a couple. What version of Maven did we install? Okay, it's not specified there. Let's have a look. Let's just see what we've got installed on the system. mvn --version 3.63. What protocol does it leverage? Was LDAP. What tool do we use to intercept traffic, indicating that the attack was successful? Well, we could use plenty of tools, but in this case, TCP dump, it looks like it's looking for. What port do we need to inspect intercepted traffic for? We actually used 1389, but I guess it should have been 389 as the default LDAP port. I guess that was a mistake in the article because the article was using 1389. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. What's the next question? What port is the MongoDB service running on? Okay, so actually if you go back to our article there, in the post-exploitation section, they begin to mention some MongoDB stuff. So it looks like this article is going to go through the post-exploitation steps as well. Let's just go back over to our shell. Typically what we do here once we get to this stage is look for some SUID files or see if there's any passwords lying around in files, maybe see if there are any kernel exploits available. Copy over some scripts like linenum or linps, things like that. In this case, let's first of all have a look to see what version of Mongo is running. Sorry, what port it's running on, we were asked, and the answer to that is 27117. Let's take a copy of that. Submit. What's the default database name for UniFi applications? So let's go ahead and just search for UniFi MongoDB default. You see immediately we've got some issues here. Let's open up a couple of these links. Okay, we've got an example here that we can use to connect to a shell. The database name is ACE. Okay. Let's submit that. Let's go back to our terminal and paste that in. And you can see we've now got a shell. Let's see what else we had there. db.admin.find for each print JSON. We do that and we print out all of the users. So you can see we've got some different email addresses here. We've got some hashed passwords as well for them. So we could take a copy of some of these hashed passwords and go to try to crack them. See this there under X shadow. Let's take a copy of one of them. I'm going to open up hash. Save that there. Let's just see if we can run John against this. John's pretty slow compared to hashcat, but to be honest, inside a VM, any hash cracking is pretty slow. So unless you've got your graphics card set up right, but okay. Let's run John -- word list equals. I'm going to do user share word lists. Let's do rocku. I know that HackTheBox, they won't normally use any passwords outside of that, so we'll do that against hash. And we can hit any key for status. You can see it's going to take a long time to run through just for that one hash, so probably not going to be the route that we want to go down. Let's go and see what else is. Let's go and see what the next question was. Okay. So we can also submit this here. There we go. What's the function to add data to the database in MongoDB? So you can see here we can update the shadow field in the database by executing the following query. Let me just see what format it wanted. Okay, I'm going to take a copy of this, db.admin.update. Submit. That's wrong. Okay, that's the next question, I believe. Let's have a look at the blog again. So they were basically telling us the same thing here. So once we've got a shell on the server, we can access the local MongoDB instance that's used with the UniFi network, and we can extract password hashes for cracking, as we were doing here. In fact, I'm going to cancel that because I can already hear my fans are going a bit too fast. And we can reset the password for the admin user, and we can add our own shadow admin to provide access to the administrative console. So preferably one of these two rather than have to try to crack one of those admin hashes. So we could add our own shadow admin to provide access. The first and third options are the most attractive as they theoretically provide access to the administrative console long after any patch is implemented and do not arouse suspicion. That's true. Okay, so if we reset the password for the admin's going to realize somebody's reset their password and they'll investigate to see if they have any attackers on the system, whereas these two are likely to go undetected for longer. Okay, let's see what we've got here. So they did the same thing, db admin find, and grab the hashes, the SHA-512. So yeah, it's going to be hard to crack those unless they're very basic. But what we can do is go and generate our own hashed password then. So let's do that. Let's take a copy of this. I'm going to say the password is password, and now we've got our own hash that we can inject. Let's take a copy of this. Let's actually put this into Sublime for now. I'm going to put this in the hash file, and we want to update the hash with the one that we just generated. I'm going to take a copy of this, add this here. We're already in the shell, so presumably we don't need to do this eval stuff. Hopefully we can just run it like this. We could update these as well. Let me change that to crypto. And just in case this is already used, I'm going to change that to crypto as well. Okay, and let's go back to our shell. Paste that in. Everything's looking okay so far. Let's go back now so we can run this again to see if we have added the new admin. Prints out the users, and yeah, we've got crypto, and it's got this password that we've added. So does that mean that we can now just go and connect to this with crypto and password? Let's see. It does, I think. It's taken us through to a dashboard. Let's try again. Crypto, password. And we're now, okay, we're having problems, but we should be connected. Yeah, there we go. Alright, we're through to the dashboard now. Great, let's see what we missed there with the questions. So what was the function to add data to the database? db.admin admin dot. Still feel like this should be db.admin.update. That's not much of a hint. I'm going to have to Google this. What is the function to add data to the database? Added in query and data. Insert, I guess. Let's go back. Let's do this again and change that to insert instead of update. That's right, okay. And then this one is update. Awesome. What is the password for the root user? Okay, so now that we're connected, let me go back to the blog that we were looking at. So we've created a user, we've logged in, and now we're through to the dashboard. So what it says here is that we can potentially steal SSH creds. So if it uses a gateway appliance from the vendor, you can easily grab SSH credentials for the admin account to access the device. It's found under site configuration options in the screenshot below. Okay, so we go into settings, go into site, and then we should hopefully have a password down here. Let's go and have a look. Settings. Don't want to watch a video. Oh, let me zoom out. Settings, but I don't see site. Let's see, do they have the URL there? They don't, okay. Okay, this is pretty annoying. We'll try again. Let's also go over to... I'll try and open this up in Chrome as well. Presumably the box needs to be restarted or something here. Let me just make sure it's still up and running. Shouldn't be any problems, but let's go back to settings. Nope, exactly the same. Let's try and log in on Chrome. So yeah, we should be seeing a different screen than what we're seeing there. We don't have any site in the settings. And it looks like we're having the same problem in Chrome as well. Let me search for site. Nope. Let me search for SSH. Oh, there we go. SSH password. No, it's not happening. So what I'm going to do is go and have a look at the official walkthrough here, which I would recommend checking these out anyway. I've had a look at them in the previous starting point machines, and generally they have some additional info which I don't cover in the video, or use some different techniques, so it's always worth checking out. And they also give some pretty detailed explanations around the steps. Let's just scroll down to where we got to. Okay, so yeah, we should be able to go into log into the administrative panel, go into settings, and then into site, which we don't have. We don't have any of this stuff. We don't have profiles, we don't have services, we don't have admins, we don't have any of that. If we did, what we would see is this password in the settings, and then we would be able to try and connect over SSH. So let's connect with SSH root at unified.hackthebox. Yes, let's paste in that password, and we're now connected as root. So we can cat out root.txt, and also the user, which we didn't get earlier. So let's have a look. Home Michael user.txt. Let's submit these flags. Oh, what is the password? Okay, sorry, I was a bit confused there why it was asking for the root flag first. Okay, there's the password for the root user. And here's the user flag. And then here's the root flag. And that's the unified box completed. So we're now once again up to date with the starting point machines. which I think they're going to be releasing a new one every month now, so that's going to be good to see. Just to mention that what we could have done initially was use this log4j UniFi, so there is actually an exploit that's put together, and that's going to do a lot of the hard work for us. All you need to do is make sure that you have you can see here it's setting up the JNDI LDAP server, it's generating the reverse shell and stuff for us. All we need to provide is the URL that we want to attack, the IP address we want to connect back to our machine, and then the port as well. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Thanks.